Welcome, everyone. We are so thrilled to be joining you once again. My name is Devora Governelli,
I'm Carrie Parker.
and today we actually wanted to dive into some of our Women's Month content just a little early and pay homage to the incredible Catherine O'Hara, who we have just loved literally our entire lives. And we just want to take some time to take some reflection and walk back through the incredible legacy that she left on this world and just all the beauty that she contributed to it and talk about the ways we can just keep her alive in our hearts and be able to just enjoy her works for the rest of our lives. I'm gonna kick it over to you, Carrie.
Awesome. So we were just talking about how honestly Catherine O'Hara, especially for millennials, has been such a mom figure. But honestly, she started much earlier than her mom roles, and she started on SCTV with a handful of great classic comedians, including John Candy. She very classically was friends with him and was in the recent John Candy documentary, I Like Me. But so SCTV was 1981 to 1983. And on that, you also had Eugene Levy, who she has worked with numerous times. We'll get into that a little bit later. Rick Moranis, though, even as well, who I also love. I know that millennials are like taking it back right now. Martin Short was on it, Harold Ramis. So for a lot of us, it's those actors who made movies that created our childhood, and they all started together. On SCTV. So we started seeing her work with some of her friends from that show pretty consistently. We will talk about Home Alone in a little bit, John Candy. She started working with Tim Burton, and it looks like our earliest was 1988 with Beetlejuice. But then we also had Nightmare Before Christmas, where she was two different roles. And then we have the Christopher Guest series of movies that she did as kind of part of his troupe, which I love and adore, and we're going to get into that. But then we have the other amazing elements where she has classically been mom. Penelope, which I love with Christina Ricci. She was also Justice Strauss in a series of unfortunate events. And obviously, one of our most favorite, most impactful mom roles was Schitt's Creek. I'm going to do my best not to cry.
And we will both fail because
We
Schitt's Creek is just everything.
But also have to make sure that we're talking about the number of voice acting roles that she's done, including my daughter loves Elemental. And so I heard it the second
Yes.
that I forget the boy's name, but our water
Wade.
character, he goes home and
Wade.
he goes home and then his mom, I was like, I know that voice. And I, of course, had to look it up and it was Catherine O'Hara. She also did Frank and Weenie. So we've got at least three Burtons.
Right.
At
Yeah.
least, not to mention the Beetlejuice sequel, right? But so that reality that she also has a handful of just talent who love working with her repeatedly because Eugene Levy, I don't even want to try and count right now the number of times that they were together, but I love that when we lost her, Dan identified that she was just always the fun aunt. Um, but I think it's great that obviously they both had their own families, marriages outside of their acting roles, but then they had a safe partner, comedic partner even, that they felt like they could just come back to and they could play off of each other so well. A Mighty Wind, which is one of the number of soundtracks that Catherine O'Hara was part of, A Kiss at the End of the Rainbow. And so I mean, we've seen it in parody in Schitt's Creek, the idea that she would try to sing and things like that, but it was always that attention-seeking Moira-esque thing. But the reality was she actually was a great talent. There were multiple roles where she was singing. They even put it into Best in Show and For Your Consideration just for fun. So she's one of our heroes. She's gone too soon, so we're doing this.
Girl, don't get me started. Oh, no. No, no. We're still at the beginning of this video. Oh, girl, maybe I should go ahead and jump in with some Beetlejuice here. Well, as you said, such an insanely impressive resume. Her life's work, her body of work, her legacy, it is phenomenal. We could literally talk for weeks about how incredible that she was in her work while she was here. But we're going to focus on just a few select highlights. And I'm going to kick it off with Beetlejuice. Little kid when that movie came out, one of that, the Tim Burton classics, really establishing that aesthetic and visual that he is now just so well known for. That was one of his early works, one of the first films he was doing after he left Disney Animation, and just, yeah, really like putting his mark on Hollywood. And we've kind of talked about that in some of our previous videos, that you can really tell that distinction of an artist and their vision when you start to see that through line throughout their works. And Beetlejuice really helped to be one of those like initial setting that tone. And what I love for Catherine O'Hara as her character is that in a way, she gets to be the character within that world, that she's the one kind of creating that aesthetic, at least for what's happening inside the home. So she is an artist. She's a sculptor. She is, as many artists are, an eccentric artist. She knows what she wants and she's going to work really hard to make it happen. So she, of course, just left a mark for me as a very young girl. And then, of course, because I was in that target market, like many of us our age, our generation, the movie did well enough. It had a spin-off animated series. So I have memories of watching the animated Beetlejuice with my sisters, like probably all the Saturday morning cartoons. That's probably what its slot was. But she was so fantastic because she really did show her strength as a character actor. She is screaming at the top of her lungs. Her hair is extreme. She's wearing gloves as, hair accessories. She's really taking that 80s fashion aesthetic that already had a lot of asymmetry, a lot of range in color, especially in the neon range of color hues. And it was like she was taking it even farther. So for an era where fashion and art was kind of hitting extremes, she as a character was taking it even farther than it already was for that decade. So she was so fantastic. I'm so grateful for a film that just became iconic, both for her role as well as, all of the other incredible characters that were portrayed in that, and that we've been able to see that franchise continue even until recent times with the new film. And like I said, the cartoon. So yes, love her. So grateful for some of that initial exposure that I had to her, even though, like you said, that was later in her career. That was a good 15, almost 20 years into her career at that point. But that was as she was starting to hit a little more mainstream and definitely hitting us millennials for sure.
Yes, and I love that she and Otho just became that pair that you were like, oh, every time they started talking. And it helped so much to feel Lydia's plight, right? That essentially she was the evil stepmother, if you will, in this fairy tale-esque concept that Burton created. And you're absolutely right about the art, how he tied that in so well to like it was her character's art, and therefore the home goes under this transformation, etc. But again, the scene with the shrimp is so classic. It's so amazing, and then it ties into the final scene when they dance. But the fact that the family learns to cohabitate with the spirits, I think is one of the better parts about it, is that it's that two worlds having to come together and find a way to cohabitate, and it works so well. So then I will go into mine, which is Nightmare Before Christmas. So again, another Tim Burton, but this one obviously we know was not directed by him, but it was his story, it was his creation, and the fact that he cast her as Sally. And I don't think that that was a mistake because honestly, the two actors that play Jack and Sally are very quirky, right? In real life, we have that element of Danny Elfman, very quirky gentleman, but at the same time, we love, love, love his talent. His music has touched so many different movies, touched the TV movie world in such impactful ways. You know exactly when it's Danny Elfman. And the fact that he picked Catherine O'Hara to be the opposite, that duo, that pair, that that wasn't a mistake. He had already worked with her. He already knew the great expanse of her talent. And so she did such a great job. And in looking at the story of Nightmare itself, not to be a hater, if you will, but honestly, there's a reason why when I got my tattoo, Jack is in the background and Sally's in the front, is it's almost a story of Jack's hubris, right? Like Jack is so prideful. He's like, I want to do Christmas. And it's like, bro, having Halloween wasn't enough for you. Like, we're gonna go take over other holidays. And Sally sees it and she knows. And she's like, this is not gonna work. This is not what you were made for. It might be amazing and new and exciting. That doesn't mean you have to take it over. You can appreciate it. We can appreciate it. I mean, I think, like the reality is the compromise is that Jack celebrate Christmas, right? Like that would have been the happy thing because ultimately watching Nightmare, it's kind of tragic. It's kind of sad. It he literally crashes and burns and then realizes, "Oh, this really really pretty girl was right." And I'm like, "Yeah, she was. Hi ladies." I mean, low key, just maybe the moral of Nightmare Before Christmas is my girlfriend wasn't wrong. So I'm going to take that as a win for feminism. But the reality that she is that voice of reason, she's that voice of, I I care about him. I want him to do great things. I don't think this is the great thing he's meant for. And she's literally like kind of working behind the scenes, planting things to try and like have a safety net for him because she sees this is might not go the way he plans. Not that she's manifesting that, but just preparing for that reality so that if he does crash and burn, which he did, that she's able to help him bring it back around, right? The hubris got him high. He went up here. He was like, I am taking over all the holidays or at least Christmas. And then when it didn't work, that she's able to bring him back around and be like, you might not have Christmas, but you're the Pumpkin King, bro. Like, nobody else can do that. Like, it's a very empowering story about individuality and our roles in the world and just kind of accepting them. And that, yeah, it might mean that I live in Halloween Town for the rest of my life, but that's not that bad. You know what I mean? So, I think it's a great story. She also was a voice in Frankenweenie. So we've got multiple, multiple Tim Burton credits under her belt. So obviously they enjoyed each other enough to keep working together, and I love that. We all benefited from it. So I will kick it over to you.
It's so true. There are so many wonderful pieces of work that came from that collaboration. And I know we've talked about that in previous videos, like when you can tell that artists just collaborate so well and they want to continue to work together. And yes, we are the ones who get to benefit from that. And I love that so much. So I'm going to chat for a little minute about Home Alone. Obviously, one of the reasons that that film is such a classic is that it's set at Christmas time. And so we just can't help but put it on at least once a year, every single year. And so it just becomes burned in your brain. I mean, it's so good. I've watched it so many times. But yeah, I feel like I was kind of in that target market as a kid when it came out. I think it's one of those unicorn films like Frozen or K-pop Demon Hunters where every filmmaker hopes they've got a gem on their hands. Every filmmaker is hoping that people at least kind of like it and it's going to make money. You have a film like Nightmare Before Christmas where when it came out, it was not well received and the numbers were not great. But then all of a sudden, 2, 3 decades go by, and all of the artists are starting to finally get the recognition as the merchandise is starting to blow up, and being able to get panels together, and all of the revival theaters working, showing it. After a couple of decades, then you're like, oh wait, this is a great movie, and people finally are acknowledging that. But with Home Alone, that film was so incredible straight out of the gate. From what I saw, it looked like it actually stayed in theaters literally through to the summer. The box office sales were so stellar. It was one of the longest running films in theaters at a time when that was not a common thing. Even Catherine O'Hara herself, before the film was released, doing an interview, did the whole like, I hope people like it. I hope people think it's good. I'm having fun making it. And I think none of them had any idea it was just going to be so massive. So massive. It's a franchise that continues to be added to. Most people have feelings about it. For most people, the second one is just about as well loved as the first one. But then as you continue through 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, I don't even remember how many there are. I know Disney Plus just did the Home Sweet Home Alone, I think 2 or 3 or 4 Christmases ago. But that franchise has continued on for a long time. And maybe people don't love all of the sequels quite as much, but it does go to show you that it is a franchise that is cared about. And of course, Kevin McAllister is a very big reason for that, and our two hysterical and very talented villains. But also, it is our mom. I have always loved since I was a kid that moment where she's like, we're forgetting something, we're forgetting something, we're forgetting something. And the dad's trying to go through the list of everything it possibly could have been. And we see Kevin yelling out his mother's name literally into the universe. And you hear it have that echo effect as he yells, Mom. And then we cut to Catherine O'Hara sitting in her chair and the way she's just jolted awake, as though, even though they did not leave on good terms and they had a fight before she got on a plane to France and left him alone in the attic of their very large, beautiful house, they still are very interconnected as mother and son. It's very clear from just that moment alone. They love each other so much, the way she's jolted awake and is finally able to identify what I'm forgetting is my baby boy. So yeah, I think that moms could connect with her because moms know the joys and the challenges that come with motherhood. But us as kids, we also could connect because you just know what it is to feel like your parent is being too harsh or being too whatever. But you also know maybe you're being a brat of a kid and you still love each other so much because that's what family's about. Just a bunch of imperfect people together, still loving each other so hard. And Catherine O'Hara really portrayed that just so beautifully. Just that balance of, what it is to be in a family. It's not perfect and it's not easy, but there's still a lot of love and a lot of joy and tradition and that's what life is about. So she just, again, her range so amazing, and she just gave us so much, and I will be so grateful we get to keep watching her year after year, just like it was so hard to watch Family Stone this year, having lost the incredible Diane, now Home Alone. Oh no, I was okay.
we're not ready. Right. I will
We're
take
not.
over because
It's
we're
too
not
soon.
ready.
It's too soon. I'm
But
jumping it back
I,
over to you because I'm about to lose it.
yes, because the scene that I every single time is the scene where she's at the ticket counter and she's like, I have to get home to my
Wait to
son.
get home to my
And
son.
it's that reality of the panic. So next, we're gonna dive into the series of movies that she did with Christopher Guest. And actually, if we're being really honest, it looks like, which I never really looked into before, most of them were co-written by Eugene Levy. So the reality that for those of you who don't know, Christopher Guest is an actor. Most of you have experienced him. You probably don't remember or realize if you aren't familiar with these works, but you probably saw him in Princess Bride as the six-fingered man, the one that you killed my father, prepare to die. So, but he also was in Spinal Tap. And so then the series of movies that Christopher Guest and essentially this troupe of comedic actors that he kept using, they specifically were doing mockumentaries. So for everyone who loves The Office, Christopher Guest is essentially the man who nailed down this format of storytelling and made it very popular to the point where most of them were nominated for Oscars of some sort. Um, like I said, A Kiss at the End of the Rainbow was played at the Oscars that year that the movie was made for A Mighty Wind. But in looking, I didn't see any awards for Catherine, at least. But so the reality that Christopher Guest actually started in Spinal Tap with the mockumentary style. So he was one of the three main members of Spinal Tap because the joke is that the drummer always dies. And then Rob Reiner, ironically, who then directed Princess Bride with Christopher Guest in it, but he directed it, but he also was the director of the mockumentary in the movie. So he was a director playing a director. Um, and so Christopher Guest went on and he made a handful of movies, like I said, that were very well received critically. A lot of them were considered independent. Waiting for Guffman, I remember that one was a huge deal. Best in Show is honestly one of my favorites. A Mighty Wind,
Jennifer Coolidge.
and then yes, Jennifer Coolidge, like, and but then the one that I think honestly for Catherine O'Hara stuck out the most for me was For Your Consideration. So that one is a story about two actresses who are up for Oscars during an award season. And it's her and Parker Posey who are kind of in a competitive situation because Parker Posey is the young actress and Catherine O'Hara is playing the older actress who feels like she's never really been acknowledged, but now she's getting all of this attention because she was nominated for something. Very, very true to life, right? The reality that Catherine she did win Emmys and she did win other movie things, but never an Oscar. And so that's why this movie is so funny, but she played it so well. And it's very existential, which is what I loved about it, because it is that reality of when you choose to be a performer and you choose to be an actor, and then in these worlds, we have these awards that we create and we act like that is the pinnacle. That is the highest point you can reach. That is the highest esteem an actor can ever get is winning an Oscar, winning an Emmy, right? What's the EGOT, right? An EGOT when you get
Yes.
an Emmy, a Grammy, an Oscar, and a Tony, which Whoopi Goldberg classically has. She has an EGOT, but to get to that level is a That's a pinnacle. I will give you that one. If you can master all four, heck yes. And so that's what For Your Consideration is all about, is that idea that these two become combative. They're in the same movie though. So that's the irony, is that it's one cast, got multiple different nominations, but then how it affects each of the actors and their relationships with the other actors, but then also their careers long term. Um, but again, one of Christopher Guest's mockumentaries, Harry Shearer is in it as always. Eugene Levy. We've got Ed Begley Jr., Christopher Guest, obviously. John Michael Higgins is also a classic and always included. Jennifer Coolidge. So this one actually had John Krasinski. Hilarity ensues,
Wow.
right? Who then starred in The Office. So
Wow.
but that reality, Christopher Guest, he's a standard as far as comedic troops. There's so much improv involved, which Parker Posey classically has said she loves improv and she's so good at it. She's so sharp and quick-witted. Best in Show is probably my sentimental favorite out of them. It's just such a fun watch. I absolutely adore Jennifer Coolidge in it. Um, and Parker Posey in that one is also hilarious. Um, but the Jennifer Coolidge, Jane Lynch,
Oh, yes.
yes.
My
So
husband's.
Jane Lynch plays her dog trainer, and Jennifer Coolidge is this like rich, wife of whoever, divorcee, etc. But ultimately, a lot of innuendos, a lot of double entendres, and then ultimately they become a couple, and it's one of my favorites because I guess at the time, probably it was just that idea of two women openly flirting and then being a couple in a movie. And it wasn't like this risque plot twist. It was funny, but it was funny because the way that they were interacting and the way that they had met. And it's so obvious because Jane Lynch is so flattering of Jennifer Coolidge the whole entire time. Like, and that's why it's funny. And then when they're finally together, it's exactly what you wanted to see happen, the bow at the end, right? Because you see them both just adoring each other the whole entire time, like two smitten high schoolers, but they're avoiding that, like crossing that line, and then they become a couple, and it's absolutely adorable, and I love it. So that's one of the reasons that one's my favorite. But honestly, Catherine O'Hara, Eugene Levy again are married in it. So funny. And somehow on their trip to the famous dog show, they they end up staying at an old friend's house, and the old friend was apparently somebody that Catherine O'Hara's character had a relationship, and like the guy keeps referencing it even though his own wife is there, and Eugene Levy is so just like, what Twilight Zone did I step into that this man is just openly talking about his wife sexually, and he is so the idea that Eugene Levy has to kind of like put the man in his place is adorable the whole time. And he plays kind of as opposed to what we'll reference in a minute, the underdog, right? Where it's like he doesn't feel as manly as the other gentleman in the room, and so he's trying to kind of boost his masculinity and bravado a little bit so that he feels more secure about himself. Cutest thing, because Catherine O'Hara's character obviously is like, babe, I'm with you. Like, stop. If he's not a threat, he's not a problem. I don't know why he's doing this. It's not a thing because obviously I'm with one person. She also sings songs about loving terriers, and who can't love a movie that gives Catherine O'Hara an excuse to make up songs about loving terriers? So, anyways, I will now kick it back to you, and we will do our very last and our very favorite of the titles for tonight.
Oh my heavens. Schitt's Creek. I just like, oh, how do I love thee? Let me count the ways. I wound up getting into that show because I was working in a costume shop. I had this fantastic colleague who loved the show. And he kept saying to me, "Have you seen it? Have you seen it?" And I'd be like, "Oh, it's on my list. I'll get to it eventually." And he's like, "I'm telling you, if for no other reason, watch this show because of Moira's costumes. You will not be able to get over how over the top and incredible and just phenomenal her wardrobe in that series is." So that literally was the reason I gave it a chance, was because my costuming colleague kept talking up Moira's costumes. Oh my heavens! And he was not wrong. Her wardrobe is just out of control. Really, the entire Rose family, they are all just so on point, and the wardrobe really does inform their characters pretty much as their own performance does. But it is a series where the character arc and the character progression of both that family as well as many other characters that you come to love in that town. It's my second top favorite after Zuko from Avatar: Last Airbender. But just it's so beautiful. I cry every time I binge it when I get to the end and you're seeing the ridiculous billboard at the edge of town and you are getting that moment of, the full arc for them, and that moment where it really does feel right that it's time for them to be moving on to the next chapters of their lives, even though it's bringing them apart. Gosh, it's so outlandish and so ridiculous. My understanding actually is that Catherine almost said no to being Moira, but eventually, as we know, she did say yes. The accent that she created, like, it's just like it blows my mind. It's so good. And just everything about her performance, I feel like you really get to see that range of what she had already demonstrated so much throughout her career in this very brief little 6 seasons of Schitt's Creek. It just, it wouldn't be the Rose family without her as the matriarch, her at the helm in that role. I'm excited to binge it again. I've already binged it so many times. I'm gonna do it again. Just some beautiful writing, beautiful performing, just all around from everyone involved. I We were talking earlier about, I don't think anyone could see it coming. Just like I don't think anyone could see Frozen or Home Alone or K-pop Demon Hunters coming, with how massively it was going to be responded to and the way it was going to be received by so many and touch so many. Schitt's Creek was one of those where it just grew over time as more and more people heard about it and came to know it and see it and appreciate it. And it is very deserving of that. And I will watch it over and over again till the day I die. I just will. It's amazing.
So we're gonna have like truth time, right? True confessions of a film nerd is I have this awful, awful thing where, as you can tell, I'm a crier, right? Like I'll just literally sob right now at the idea of it. But I will therefore not finish a series. I will stop. I will just, nope, I'm that show, nope, it's fine. It's over here. It hasn't ended. I'm not saying goodbye to the characters yet because I'm not emotionally ready. And it's so it's sad but true. And so honestly, it took me a little while to finish it. Like I would rather restart it all over again than watch the final episodes, because at least I'm not going through the goodbyes, which ironically we're kind of doing right now. The idea that people could stand opposite Catherine and keep a straight face is amazing. I love that Dan was able to do that in so many of the scenes. Like the folding the cheese scene is so classic at this point. Um, but I also love that most of the time it's because Moira would get so like, I'm a mom, I can cook. Like, and the kids would be like, Mom. And she's like, what are you talking? And then she would have to prove it to them. And so it became a like, I am proving myself. And Moira was always proving herself. And it was adorable how David would play off of it, but also how I have IMDb helping me. High promo for IMDb. Let's be friends. So that's why I keep looking off or looking down or because I got IMDb here helping me out. But Johnny knew how to play Moira. Every time that she threw a fit or she had a reaction, he knew exactly how to get her out of it. But I love that Dan and Eugene were able to create a family for the sitcom where that it was that deep. Like these characters were so well written, but honestly, the whole entire cast was amazing. Moira did do so well. Catherine just sold her. The idea that they tied in that she was a soap opera star, that she essentially had seen her heyday and she was on the downslope essentially, but you can't tell her that, right? We're not thinking about that. She could still do whatever she wants, including the weird Crow movie, right?
Oh,
Like,
I love that
or
franchise.
or sell her Berglingers wine, right? So I'm so grateful that we had her. I'm going to avoid breaking down in tears right now. We are going to wrap this up before either one of us do that.
She just deserves all the everything in the whole entire universe. She was everything that you hope. Oh, here I go too. She was everything that you hope can exist in the world. She was talent and she was class. I mean, what a beautiful example of being just a classy human. If you are ever finding yourself just not quite living up to the potential you know you could and want to, just go engage in some Catherine O'Hara, whether it's her work or her interviews, and be inspired. She clearly showed love and care to those around her because, like you said, the fact that she had so many artists that wanted to continue to come back and work with her time and time and time again. I mean, I don't know if there's anything more telling in how wonderful a worker could be than to have so many colleagues and friends want to continue to do projects with her, literally spanning decades. I mean,
Right?
that by itself is so telling. So I am grateful that Catherine was in the world, and I'm grateful that we were able to experience what she put in the world. And I'm so grateful that it is an art form that is essentially permanent, because that is the beauty of film. We've worked a lot in theater, and theater is wonderful in the way that you are in the moment and you're experiencing the character arc in its full while it is on stage. There is a lot of beauty to that style of storytelling, but there is a temporary nature to it. I mean, you can record it, but a lot of times it's just temporary in nature. But with film, it is there forever. So that is something I will just be forever grateful to this art form that has been around for a century, that it was able to capture what Catherine put in the world, and we get to appreciate it and enjoy it and access it whenever we need it. So in that way, Catherine will always be here with us, and we will always be able to benefit from her presence in this world.
And I think it's funny because I've heard people be like, it's an actor. Why do you care? Like, you never met them, you never knew them. And I think the reality is that, I mean, especially for like people like us who are absolute nerds for storytelling and performing arts, but just the reality of we're always going to feel the loss of heroes and those who inspire us to be good people.
Yeah, it's very true. I think the other side of that also is that you and we've worked so much in theater. I just binged all of Wonder Man over the weekend, and I appreciated it so much because I was like, yep, I've experienced that at work. Yep, I've experienced that at work. The episode where they kind of bring you into the wardrobe space for a little minute. I was like, yes, that I have lived this scene multiple times over. But having worked with so many talented and incredible humans, you really come to know and see and truly understand what goes into it, regardless of whether you are a high paid actor or not. You are putting an immense amount of work and effort into that work. And we, as the patrons, we, as the audience, we benefit, as we've talked about, on a literal neural level from that work, from that storytelling. And the fact of the matter is that our brains are programmed to experience that storytelling as though we are them or we are right there with them. Those mirror neurons put us right in those shoes. So it is very hard to not feel connected, especially for someone who has put a body of work into the world like Catherine O'Hara. So yeah, we can appreciate the work that she put into it because we've seen it firsthand in our supporting roles as stage manager and as costumer. There's a lot of support that those roles give to performers. And we can also appreciate it on a script analysis and mental health level where we can just know the benefit that each individual receives through the neuroscience that we've been able to to gain over the last couple decades. Yeah.
Yeah. And the fact that she just always seems so open, and I think doing improv and comedy, you have to be open and receive a lot, but then be willing to reciprocate and offer it back is why she always seemed like she was just such an open, empathetic human being. So glad to be here and be able to talk about it and make sure that we are honoring her and putting these people, creators, talents out there in the world. Because I know for younger generations, especially, like my kids know Wednesday, they know all these things about Tim Burton. They've seen Beetlejuice and Beetlejuice. They've seen Home Alone. You know, they'll get to Schitt's Creek Sunday someday, but like the reality of who Catherine O'Hara was, right? And so that yeah, mommy's sad because we lost someone, but it's okay because you'll still get to experience her.
Exactly. The beauty of film, it gets to be permanent. Girl. Well, on that note, I think before we drown ourselves literally in tears over our loss, um, we just want to thank everyone for joining us as we, like you said, honor this incredible woman, this incredible performer, this incredible human, and all the good that she put in the world. And I hope that we can take the body of work that she put out there and be inspired to, in whatever way we can, contribute positively to this world, because we all have the ability to put good into the world the way that she did. And I'm so grateful that she can be that inspiration to literally millions of people. And I'm so glad we had a chance to be able to touch on some of that and reflect on that and remind ourselves that we can also be awesome and we can also put good things out there.
Yes. What would Catherine do? That's gonna be one of our new mottos as we keep striving. Because to be as cool as Catherine O'Hara is still to land amongst the stars, let's be honest. So, when in doubt, what would Catherine do? Thank you guys so much for being with us.